let's try to find some solution to these very intractable problems bedeviling Nigeria for decades. Every administration is finding it very difficult to push the button when it comes to fuel subsidy. The last president who tried it got his fingers burnt, and that was President Goodluck Jonathan, when he removed fuel subsidy on the 1st of January 2012. And since then, the current administration has been battling Nigeria's petrol subsidy. Now it's called something very different, a little bit like under recovery of petrol pricing. That's the name for it. But the IMF says we have to remove it. Now the Minister of Finance says we are going to remove it. It's going to be gradual because we don't have what you call the buffers or the cushion, what you call the soft landing for 180 million Nigerians to remove subsidy. In 2019 budget, the provision is $1 billion US. That's about 360 billion naira, going by some exchange rate. Let's talk to Paul Alaje, who is a senior economist at SPM Professionals, live from our Abuja studios. Paul, good morning, and thank you very much for finding petrol to get to our Abuja studios to come in this morning for this conversation. So, you listen to what the Minister of Finance says, and that's where we're taking this from. The advice on one side, yes, it's good advice. It's been said many times over, but the minister says we do not have the necessary buffers yet to remove petrol subsidy. So thank you, Mrs. Christine Lagarde. Thank you for your advice at the IMF, but we cannot implement it, at least for now.
Yeah, thank you so very much, and good morning. Thank you for having me. What Christine Lagarde was saying to Nigeria is that over 600 billion naira was given out in, whether we change the nomenclature, we call it subsidy or recovery of some sort, over 600 billion naira was given as cushion to support the petrol prices in a country that will borrow, according to 2019 budget, over 1 trillion naira. More than half, or about half of that, is what we're going to use to subsidize petrol prices. And so we are checking it. It doesn't really make sense, doesn't really make economic sense to be borrowing while government is giving these back, quote and unquote, to the people. The question is, who among the people is getting the benefit of petrol subsidy? Who are the oil marketers? Who are the importers of petroleum? How do we verify what these organizations or companies have imported to Nigeria? How do we know that it's going to have positive impact on Nigeria? So we have, on one hand, absence of data or a situation where we don't have proper data to determine who is going to benefit from subsidy. On the other hand, we have witnessed from the effrontery President Jonathan displayed in 2012, and I can say that's one of the reasons why the president, those that still remember that the mother of all protests that was everywhere across the country in Nigeria, irrespective of location, tribe, everybody agreed that subsidy should not be removed. But what really is the conversation? Christine Lagarde is saying that between 2015 to 2018 December, Nigeria spent almost 5.2 trillion. That was bigger than 2012. That was approximately 2012 budget. So we use that to give subsidy. Clearly, it does not make economic sense. Who benefit directly, who benefit more from this subsidy regime? That exactly is the question. Is it a good advice? Perfect advice. Can Nigeria do it this moment today? Yes. If there is will, it will be done. Without will, Nigeria cannot do it. Now, how have we gotten it wrong from President Obasanjo to President Jonathan and now to the current administration? The great issue is we want to start palliative measure when we start subsidy regime. It really has not worked that way. Before you start subsidy regime, there must have been palliative measures. It is said that about 70% of Nigeria are poor. And in fact, more than 60% of Nigeria are said, based on different data that are available, to live below $2 a day. Whether that is correct or not, we need to verify the organization releasing those data. Now, those data, I beg your pardon. So the question now is, how do we cushion the effect? Which is the first thing that must come before subsidy conversation even goes around? We know that the masses would like to commute even with mass transit and so on and so forth. So my advice, or our advice as an organization for government, is to have an alliance with NURTW and all other mass transit organizations, private, the ABCs of this world, and so on and so forth. Have that alliance with them, have that agreement with them so that they can use vehicles that consume less so that they don't change the price of commuting people and also moving their goods. That on one hand. On the other hand, maybe we should say good news regarding the railway that government is building. We need to accelerate more. We need to work faster. We need to accelerate our effort so that we deliver rail system and also movement of goods majorly by rail, so that when we say we want to start removing subsidy from petroleum, we will not have so much of effect directly on Nigerian masses. The rich will still be able to buy it, even when you call it 200 naira. The rich can buy it. But the question is, what proportion of our population are people that are rich? Very few. Less than 10% of our population. I am not saying that everybody that is rich are stolen. I'm saying those that are even genuinely rich, those that work with conglomerates, those that have grown through the ranks and through the ladder. They will all understand that this is sacrifices we must make.
If you allow me, Paul,
cannot
just a
continue
quick
to borrow
one.
for the future generation to pay at the expense of people now.
Paul, yes, well said. But again, look at the train, the new railways. Look at the Abuja-Kaduna, for example. We're still powering these rails with diesel. The Nigeria Railway Corporation says it made about 100 million last year, 100 million naira along that corridor, but about 80 million was spent. 80 million naira was spent on powering those trains with diesel. 80 million, so it's still running into deficit there. So you find 80% of its total revenue still using, because we don't have electricity that would power rails. So we're building rails that are not going to be powered by electricity. I think this is going to be the first anywhere in the world, I'm not too sure, where you're going to be powering trains with petrol or diesel. So how do we get out of this conundrum, as it were? First, resolving petrol by providing what the Minister of Finance called the cushion effect, or the soft landing, or what those buffers that pass what you're talking about. How soon do you think we should start this? Do you think we can achieve this within the next 4 years of Buhari's second term in office?
I completely believe that we can achieve this if we start this moment today. We don't need to wait till tomorrow or the day after. By preparation of government, people, what naturally we say, there may not be any need for subsidy anyways, because if those that are traveling from Ojota perhaps to Oshodi, or they are commuting from Ojota to Oshodi in Lagos, and those that are moving from MCC Road to, say it's Isong Road to somewhere in Cross River, they all understand that if government has provided mass transit for them, that can move them large number of people, more like what train wants to replicate. For instance, let's give an instance of what is happening in Abuja-Kaduna Road. Because of kidnappers' activity on that road, because of high prices on that road, Nigeria prefer to use rail systems. So what you see now, people are even queuing up to buy rail tickets. And I've recommended for government, while Nigeria Railway should keep playing regulatory role, I think that federal government needs to bring private sector to bring more rail, to bring more train, if you like, on ground, so that we have more. The demand for it is more than what they can afford, what they can supply themselves. When they bring that, if they are much in number, they can compete, and the price can even go for that lower than what we have right now. We're not powering with electricity. There is no doubt about that. It's the way to go. But when you look at revenue generation, which is what Ms. Lagarde and the World Bank, new World Bank president was telling Nigeria, which is revenue mobilization as against what we have in our GDP, it's a major issue we need to talk about today. So if you have that conversation on the table, it will be wrong for us to keep spending about 700 to 1 trillion naira to subsidize fuel that we have alternative, or we can do something else with.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning. It's Monday, the 15th of April. Thank you so much from our Abuja studios. We appreciate your comments on this very important issue.